Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to work on conning our way into some inheritance money with the amazing Mr. X. If you get off on double-crossing double-crossers, you should subscribe to the channel. Let's get to it. We open at an opulent residence on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Chris confides in her sister Janet that she hears a man calling to her from the water. She takes it to be Paul, her beloved scumbag husband who's been dead for 2 years. Even now, she remains enthralled by memories of his chaotic energy. Despite this, she continues preparing for her date with reliable, consistent Martin. When she learns he's running late, she decides to take a beach walk to his house. But along the way, she again hears the unmistakable sound of a creepster calling her name, and she runs into Alexis. He identifies himself as a psychic, does a bit of a cold reading, suggests she marry Martin, and then vanishes. Thrown a bit by this, they decide to stay in, where Martin spends the night trying to convince Chris to forget about stupid old dead Paul, and she finally submits to his engagement desires. That night, the ocean, again, summons her, and she's confronted by the ghostly apparition of her wedding dress. Janet runs in to find her babbling nonsense, so she puts her back to bed. The next day, Chris still desires answers and is compelled to visit Alexis for a consultation. He plays coy at first, but Chris is determined to examine the supernatural side of her life, and she goes at it so hard that Janet tattles on her to Martin. The two of them hire a magician turned investigator to look into it. He has a file on someone who he thinks may be Alexis. All they need to do is confirm his identity. Janet goes in to present herself as a customer, and we see some of his backstage shenanigans. Of course, he's so good he doesn't use the information directly, but rather predicts her insecurities and the deepest desires of her true identity, playing her so soundly that she emerges in a daze, so sure of his innocence that she doesn't even bother to preserve his fingerprints. Afterward, we learn that he has additional sources of info, as their housekeeper is also in his employ. Later, Janet gets uppity about the unappreciated value and maturity of her advice, and admits she's been seeing Alexis and they've been discussing Chris's problems. The ladies race off to have it out, but he adeptly redirects their catfight energy into a seance. He's imagineered a 4D experience to tantalize the senses, but the boys run in to spoil the fun. They put him to the test, requesting he push through the fatigue and seance again with them present. He makes no promises, but manages a full torso apparition as Paul reveals his silhouette to them. And then, after the guests are gone, more directly to Alexis. We find out Paul is only legally dead, and he's trying to get his hands on some of Chris's giant bags of money. He enlists Alexis's help, compelling him under threat of murder to seduce Janet, while he works on driving Chris insane so they can collect the inheritance via Janet. As they work their grift, Alexis loses his nerve after seeing Paul intends to draw Christine straight off a cliff. And then, even as she convalesces, Paul is in the basement, constantly pumping creepy noises up to her bedroom, filling her brain with madness. Then he makes the mistake of starting up while Janet is in the room, and she sees the trick right away. When she confronts the men in the basement, Alex ends up taking a gut shot. Paul pursues Janet to the bedroom, but is called back by Alexis, who puts on his greatest performance, confounding Paul's murderous intentions and causing him to empty his gun, making him an easy target for the police, who use his body to store their bullets. Janet then says her final goodbye to Alexis, as his bird is freed, representing the ascension of his soul. The Amazing Mr. X was a pleasant and well-crafted entry into the series. It had some really good camera effects and presented the multiple sides of Alexis's con in an interesting way. I would have liked to have seen some cardistry woven into the street magic aspects of the film. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.